right, so Tuesday morning, December 7th, just refreshing, catching up on SQL queries covered so far. Um, no one has a particular error or sticking point.
Morning, Don. Yeah, I'm looking through my notes with there was one question I had, and you might have already covered this. I apologize. I had a session that I had to sit in for work.
Okay.
On number, let me see here. I'm sorry. I think I need to open up 6 or 7 more things here. Yeah, so on number 6, when I ran it, I think I put the note in there. I couldn't figure out. Oh, so the equal to or over an hour, the length. Let's say it says retrieve the course name, number of credits, course section day, and duration for all course sections that are held on Friday and are equal to or over an hour in length. So the only issue I had was when it came to let's see, I can't figure out the equal to or over an hour in length. I used and csec time is greater than or equal to, but I kept getting an error when I put the greater than sign.
Okay. Did you get my email? Some of the date issues.
Oh yeah, you know what? Yes, I did. I apologize. You're right.
Yeah,
Okay.
the whole date and time, like I think I've said that since the beginning of the course, dealing with Python. Date and time are the weirdest things with software for some reason, getting the format right. So I kind of asked you guys to ignore those. But we can take a look at it. Which number was it? What number problem was that?
It was number 6. I think I got the solution, but what you're saying now makes sense.
Yeah, I've got the solution in Oracle. I don't know that I've gone through and translated it into MySQL.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at my SQL, and it looks like. Well, let me run it and see what it says. Yeah, well, actually, it ran fine, so it must just be what you're talking about, the time. I mean, it worked. It ran fine. It turned back 56 rows. So.
Okay.
So disregard. Sorry.
That's all right. No, it's those. Yeah, dealing with time. That's why I'm such a big fan of the W3 Schools tutorials. And you can find, if you go to that website, to the MySQL tutorial. There's section dedicated to fun with dates and times, and sorting by them, looking at the difference between them, those sort of things. We'll see there are date functions where that's the other presentation I wanted to get into today. Was some all right.
Excuse me, I forgot my mic was on.
Oh, Paul, thank you, buddy. Thank you. Because that happens to me when I'm talking and they just leap out and I'm like, oh, pardon me, yikes. But that W3 Schools has a sample database that is the very similar to the North Wind database, which is what has come with Microsoft Access and SQL Server. It's been Microsoft's sample database for years and years and years and years, and they use a very similar version. So dealing with date and time, that database is much more robust than my little sample database here. So that's why I had one of your coworkers, Dave, either Chaz or Andra, went through that entire SQL tutorial during the class because she really wanted to lock in these concepts, and seemed to do pretty well for her.
Yeah, I'll
So
check. I lean on all three of them, Jeremy, Andre, and Chaz quite a bit, to be quite honest. So I'll hit them
yeah,
up and see. I'll go through there and look at that.
and Jeremy's way ahead of me. So leaning on him is absolutely appropriate.
Yeah, he's pretty smart fellow, that's for sure.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and it's awesome talking about this stuff. My son works for Bumper to Bumper, just got hired a month ago or so. I probably said that 3 or 4 times. And he's a SQL developer doing kind of moving data around, matching stuff up, stuff that's coming in, files that are coming in from like 18 different stores. And you've got uh, inventory part numbers in different formats, like from different supplier systems. So you've got to do a whole lot of joining and lining up and looking from this table to that table, what makes sense. And it's all in SQL. And the stuff that he's telling me he's doing, I'm like, wow, in SQL? Wow, cool, wow. Because he's, kind of once you work with it like Jeremy, you get next level pretty quickly when you're having to solve real world problems. But I would do that and I would do it in Python. A lot of what he's doing just in my head makes more sense in Python, but that's the beauty of these things. Like one of the presentations today, I'll show you what kind of how SQL does a pivot table. It's You can do a pivot table in Excel, you can do it in Python or R, you can do it in SQL. There's all of these tools. That's kind of what I guess um, what makes learning them a little easier is you kind of start to realize intuitively that there's got to be a way to do this. There's got to be a way to do it. I just need to figure out what the syntax is or how this tool wants to do it. And you just you pick it up a little faster, I guess. Okay. Well, let's talk about subqueries, which you'll see it's almost kind of like nesting an if then else underneath another if then else, almost like that. Share this PowerPoint. Share my whole screen. Oop. Okay, there's my PowerPoint. Okay, so yeah, you'll see here in a minute. You can nest queries or put a subquery normally in the where clause, but anyway, here we go. Subqueries. Um, yeah, synonymous, same term. So you can use a subquery to be the search criteria for another query, for an outer query or a parent query, and they they start to get complex. But if you decompose them, it makes it a lot easier to understand. And I'll show you what I mean. So assuming you've got two queries, a main query and a subquery, the database will run the subquery and return a result that gets used in the main query. And that's the best way to explain that is to show it to you. And like I said, these are where clause stuff. So here we go. Let's look at an example. This retrieves the records of all the students who have the same classification as our buddy Amanda Mobley. Okay, so we'll start with the subquery. Start on the inside and work your way out, kind of like we do with Python functions. You kind of go to the center thing and then you start kind of wrapping that center thing with other functions. So you can nest them. It's a similar concept here. So we start with the inside, start with the subquery. All we're doing here is selecting the student class, which is going to be like sophomore, like a 3-letter code for sophomore, junior, senior, that sort of thing. And then that will return a list of S classes, right? Or I'm sorry, that will return an S class for Amanda Mobley. So it'll return whatever she is, sophomore, junior. So kind of whatever I've got, the subquery, you can now kind of put away. It's a single value. That is really syntactically, as far as SQL is concerned, that is no different than putting her S class in quotes, because it's returning a single value. So we're using the equal here. I think I'm getting ahead of myself here. So we use this subquery as the search criteria, the where clause for this outer query, where we're pulling all the students' last name and first name from the student table that have the same S class. Okay, so that's the main query, is this outer one, and then the subquery is the one in the where clause. Okay, so note that in this example, the subquery retrieves a single value, SO for sophomore. So we can say equals. That's going to become important. Equals versus in. If you're expecting more values to come back, you're going to want to use the in, but I'm getting ahead of myself. But since we're only expecting one value, and this Amanda Mobley, because you could have two Amanda Mobleys, it's not a great example, but assuming there's only one Amanda Mobley, you're going to get one result back from the database, and that's why you have the equal sign here. Okay, and then there's some more rules of a subquery here. Let's see. There we go. Move those to the front. Move to front. Bring to front. Now they stay there. Okay, the search field in the main query, which is this right here, this outer thing, is the main query, and the search field is, in your where clause. It's got to be the same field. It'll error on you if you try to say where S class equals select, last name or whatever. It has to be the same field in the subquery when you're doing that sort of thing. Okay. Where S class equals select S class. That makes sense. That's intuitively obvious, right? In English. Makes sense to me. Okay, some other rules here. Just so that it won't error, make sure you enclose the subquery with parentheses. That can often cause issues if you forget these parens here. And you don't use an order by clause in the subquery, and you have to have a comparison operator, like I said, in the main query. You've got to be looking for, select something where something equals, and then you select a single value, or select some columns where something is in, select, and it will retrieve multiple values, and you use the in operator to check against a list of multiple values, or a query that returns multiple values. And this is pretty critical here. To debug, you always run the subquery first to make sure that it is returning the search criteria, because that's what the subquery is. It's returning the search criteria that you're looking for or that you were expecting. So I really, you kind of want to write the subquery first, to make, and then test it, and then build out to the, to the main query. Okay. Other rules. All tables used in the subquery must be included in the main query. And subquery is an integral part of the main query. It's all one line of code, ended by that semicolon. It's all one thing, but if you pull it out, you can see how they execute separately. But it's part of the where clause, and that's where it goes. But you can still have all the other stuff. There you go, subqueries. So there's, like we said, there's two types that'll either return a single value, because you've pulled something normally based on the primary key. That way, you're only going to get one row, or it returns multiple values, which sometimes you absolutely will want. They're both very handy. Single value uses the equal, multiple value uses the in. That's very important. I guess that's why we're covering it more than once. And then, okay, so some examples here. So we're going to write a nested query that displays all the students' first and last names that were enrolled in the same course sections as Amanda Mobley. So the C-Sec ID from the C-section table. Okay, so we need a subquery that just retrieves Amanda's courses. So we start from the inside and work out. Okay, so, and of course we have a join, because very, very rarely do you have anything in one table. So we can cut and paste this. I think I corrected all the quotes. So this will give us a list of all the course sections that Amanda Mobley is enrolled in. I think I got them all right. There you go. So she's enrolled in course section 11 and 12. And we don't know what classes those are. We didn't select that. All we know is the section ID is 11 or 12. So it's a multiple value query, a query that returns multiple values. So go back to the instructions. And that's, there's a dead giveaway there. Course sections, of course, it's going to return more than one row, right? Of course, it's going to be a multiple value query. So there's our subquery. We returned 11 or 12. So and then we have this outer query where we are grabbing the student last name where those students are enrolled in the same course sections as Amanda. So we can just grab this this query here. I think I got it all on one, in a couple of slides if you don't want to piece it together, but I just want to illustrate that we can write these separately and bring them in, and with just a little bit of editing, they'll make sense. Okay, so I just pasted the main query, and of course, syntactically, it's wrong. So what I would do to fix this is go down here and just as a matter of convention, you normally want to indent the subquery. And of course, I just hit tab, and you got to have an open paren. So I'm going to tab them all in. Tab, 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 tab. And then I still got a red X because I need one more close paren, just like in Python, just like in Excel. You got to make sure you got all your parentheses. Okay, so this inner query, this nested query, subquery, is going to return 11 and 12 because that's what that query returns. All we're selecting is CSEC ID. And in the main query, we are using a join condition in the where clause, but our only search condition is the CSEC ID being in the list that is returned by the subquery. And then when we hit that, we'll get Amanda Mobley and everybody else. Now, going off script, which what the heck, right? We got plenty of time with each other. That to me looks goofed up. Because you've got duplicate records. Normally, right? You wouldn't want to see Amanda Mobley twice or Michael Connolly twice. So, what is our keyword to eliminate duplicates? Jim.
Distinct.
That's correct, Paul.
What was it?
Distinct. Distinct is the keyword
Okay.
that we use to eliminate duplicates. So looking at this query, I don't like what I got at the end there. I'm thinking just in English, just what I want to do is select distinct, S first and S last. But I don't know that that's not going to bomb, but I want to play with this and you guys can just watch and play along. So does anybody have a guess? Is anybody like, Don, this is obvious. All you got to do is type in blah, blah, blah. I want to suppress the duplicate Amanda Mobley and Michael Connolly's in my return. Is the syntax jumping out at anybody? Colton, you're a SQL commando. You got a guess as to what the syntax would be? Colton, you with us? Okay. Well, all right. Stepped away from the mic for a little bit, I guess. I'm wanting to type distinct and then maybe like put it in parentheses. But if I just do that, let's see if just that fixes it. Look at that. Didn't need anything fancy, but that worked. All righty. So don't be afraid to experiment. It's not going to bite you. But yeah, that was exactly what I wanted it to do. And it didn't. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, we have 4 distinct students. So there you go. Distinct. All right. So that's a subquery with a main query. So yeah, in our example, the subquery provides all the course section IDs, which are just for Amanda Mobley. And then given those, we pulled in everybody who's also enrolled in both sections. So it's kind of like it's doing an and. Note the result lists duplicate students. Yeah, add the distinct to the main query. There we go. Just like I was agonizing over. Okay, so here it is, cut and pastable into Workbench. Okay, so that's multiple values. We just did, and we use the in operator, in right here. Okay. Now we're going to use a nested query to display the course name, which is course ID, and the capacity for all courses that are taught in a room where capacity is greater than 40. And this is going to be another multiple return. So your subquery, all we're looking for is a list of capacities that are greater than 40. So we're selecting the capacity and we're putting capacity greater than 40 in the where clause. Both of those. I'll get rid of all this. Just the subquery. So we've got 150, 42, 55. Handy thing I never mentioned before is the comment character when you're dealing with SQL. A single line comment is dash dash, and then if you have a space, it makes it into a comment. So right now, this dash dash where capacity is greater than 40 is not, it's a comment, so it's going to be ignored. So I wanted to show you all of the capacities from location. So we've got a bunch of different capacities. Actually, let's select the distinct capacities. So we've got 7 distinct capacities that could come out of the location table. Okay. Now we work in the parent query. So yeah, we're selecting because we've got those so many capacities up here. We were selecting the distinct course ID and capacity. So we'll cut and paste all of that into Workbench. Okay, and we'll execute that. And these are the courses that have capacities greater than 40. So it made a note to myself to do without the distinct. So we get 3 rows. If we get rid of distinct up here and do it, we get, there we go, 7 rows. Because we're getting those multiple rows out of the subquery. But I want to see something real quick here. If I cover it, hang on just a sec. Yeah, that's just showing that sometimes you can code something more complicated than necessary. But before we move on here, if we put the distinct in the subquery, I think you'll see it also as a noticeable difference. So let's go back to, okay, so that's our query from the book. So we got course ID and capacity, and these are distinct because course ID 3 with a capacity of 42 is distinct from course ID 5 with capacity 42. But I want to see what happens here. Seems like what's confusing SQL is that you're getting more than one instance of each capacity in the subquery. So since I am eternally curious, I gotta hit this one and see what. No, yep, you definitely want to suppress like 5 and 42, 5 and 42. You got to suppress those duplicates in the main query. So sometimes you just got to kind of fool around with this stuff to get it to do what you were expecting. So that makes sense. Okay. A subquery as a search criteria in another query. Any questions on that before we're going to go on break? There's a uh, few other nuances before we move on. Anybody get any weird errors or questions or? All righty. See you back at 10:30. All right, let's get back to another thrilling hour of subqueries in SQL. Okay, remember that this where is the join condition. That's how you pull together the course section table and location table, is where the loc ID in each table is equivalent. And that will match up the rows, and you'll have no nulls, you'll have no locations that aren't in the course section, and vice versa. There's your join condition using the syntax in the where clause, and that's an inner join. Okay, but there's more than one way to solve a problem, and here is the syntax, the exact same syntax or the exact same query using the inner join on in the where clause, or in the, technically I guess it's in the from clause, but using an inner join clause to join those tables. And we'll drop that into, and the only line that's going to change is the join condition.
Share.
I am not sharing my screen. Thanks for piping
Okay.
up. Appreciate it. Is that you, Jim?
Yes.
Yay. Thank you so
Getting
much,
very
Jim.
confused here for a second. Okay.
No, it's good. Lets me know if folks are paying attention, which is not a given. I know some of you are working when you should be learning. Okay, so all I did was paste in this different syntax. Remember, up here we had our join condition in the where clause, where the loc ID from the two tables equals. And that's pretty straightforward. For an inner join, I like that. I don't like this inner join on, doesn't make as much sense grammatically to me as where clause, but that's going to be up to your organization and how your folks like to do that. So all I did was select this this query, and the only thing that changed was this join condition. You get the exact same results as you did otherwise. And then another kind of wah 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 is that's one way to do it. This previous query using a subquery. But really, kind of what we've done here is you can do the same query, where the subquery has magic is when you don't know this number 40 necessarily. That's where a subquery can kind of be magical and dynamic. But this query here does the exact same thing as by putting the join statement and the capacity hard coded in 40. But it doesn't mean subqueries aren't useful. It just means that sometimes you don't need a subquery. Because I mean, really, selecting capacity from location where capacity is greater than 40 is a very, very simple subquery. But if we plug in that other one, you'll see we get the exact same results. So I guess this is an example of overthinking it, where you don't necessarily need a subquery. Okay. You can have multiple subqueries within a single nested query, but you got to use the and to join them. And you can have, a subquery inside of a main query, but you can have a subquery as the where clause of that subquery as well. So it's just like pretty much everything that we're learning. You can nest things inside, and it doesn't confuse the computer at all. Okay, so what if we had the results of two subqueries that we wanted to compare in our where clause. So you want to retrieve the names of all students who have the same S class, remember, which was what, SO for sophomore, as Amanda, and had been enrolled in a course section with her. Okay, it seems like there were 4 folks that were sophomores, if I remember correctly from before. But here's the syntax for that. So we have 2 conditions that we've enumerated here. We want to check the S class to make sure it's the same sophomore as Amanda Mobley. We've done that subquery before. And we want to make sure that because we're selecting from student and enrollment, we want to make sure that the S class is the same as Amanda Mobley, but we want to make sure that the section ID is the same as the sections that Amanda has been enrolled in. So this bottom subquery here will pull out the section IDs for Amanda Mobley that she's enrolled in. Remember the student table has the student information. Enrollment has the courses that they're enrolled in, or the sections that they're enrolled in. So we can execute these individually, look at them, make sure that each subquery returns what you're looking for. And another thing to note here is this is going to be a multiple row query, because it's going to be a list of CSECs. So we use the in, and we know before that there's no other Amanda Mobleys. So this one isn't equal. This is a single row subquery, and you can mix and match, combine those however you need to solve your problem. Okay, so we can dump all of that in there. I'm going to do them separately here, real quick here. I think these. I apologize. My dog is going nuts. The mail truck drove by. So I want to stick that one in there. And of course, got to do a little editing because the semicolon's not there. So this is pulling out her section ID, remember 11 and 12. So that's why you need the in, because it's going to return more than one result. And then we want to confirm that we're only going to get one value back. So we don't need that outer paren. We need a semicolon. So this is going to confirm that we're only getting one S class back, and that's sophomore. So yeah, we can tell by looking at it that this is going to grab the names from the student table, but we're joining the enrollment and student tables here. And it's the same thing. Instead of saying, where student ID equals enrollment's SID, we could do a join statement here. Let's see, I'm going to challenge myself. Like I said, I don't love the inner and outer join syntax, but I'm going to grab all of this, stick it into SQL Workbench, and then I'm going to pretend. Ooh, it gets so dry talking on the microphone. Yuck, nothing like cold coffee. Room temperature coffee. Okay, so we got our nice blue dot up here. That means that, syntactically stuff looks right to SQL. But I'm going to try and do an inner join without looking. I never do this without looking. So from student enrollment, and then I'm going to do an inner join. Is everybody watching? Inner join on, and then we do the the join condition. I swear I'm not looking at a cheat sheet. I'm not looking at crib notes. I am actually typing without a script. It's terrifying. I'm absolutely terrified right now. So we do that. We do an inner join statement instead of doing it in the where clause. But we still need a where clause, right? Because that's what subqueries are for, is to give you search criteria. So what we're going to do now is get rid of the join stuff. So I'll delete that. And since I think that's going to work. No, it doesn't like it. What does it not like? What did I do wrong? Where S class, is there S class in more than one table? Normally it will flag that. Did I do, I got too many parentheses, don't I? Or do I? How did I goof that up? I'm getting a red X here, but no other indications. Let's see what the error code. You have an error in your SQL syntax. What am I doing wrong with this statement? Anybody following along with me? Anybody type that in, do it a little bit different? Colton, are you with me? Paul,
Yeah, I'm here.
are you typing along? Are you are you just watching me struggle?
I'm just watching him.
Watching me struggle. What's
Yep.
wrong with this query? What's wrong with the syntax of this?
It doesn't like your select statement, I guess.
It looks like it. I'm going to have to go back and look at my inner join syntax. I think that might be what I'm doing wrong. Let's look. Inner join syntax. Inner join. There you go. I forgot the table. Duh. So we are doing a table name, inner join. No. Yeah, I hate this. I never use it. Inner join enrollment. No. What does that even mean? I'm gonna have to goof with that. I'm gonna have to try and fix that, which I will. I will take that for homework. I know I'm just doing something wrong syntactically. To use the inner join instead of the join statement on the where clause. Yep. I'll have to go back and look at my inner join syntax.
I mean, you can try just highlighting that part and executing just that to make sure nothing's wrong.
Yeah, let's try that. There's another, if I do this right, I think star slash and or slash star and star slash are my comment characters, multi-line comment characters. You don't really have this in slash star star slash. Inner join, what goes there? I'm just used to saying where student ID equals that. Not unique table or alias. Yeah. Paul, what were you thinking I should type in there?
Oh, I was saying you just needed to select just that and run it to make sure that there's nothing wrong.
Oh, semicolon. Just run the selection. Execute the selected portion of the script. Nope, it doesn't like it. Does not like the way I'm doing this. But like I said, I'm going to have to go back and look at the inner join statement and figure out what I'm doing wrong in here. I think maybe I don't need the second table. Select from student inner join enrollment. Is that what I'm doing wrong? Ha! That's what it is. You only put one of the tables in the select statement in the from. The other one goes in the join. That's what I was doing wrong. You don't. Yeah. When you're joining student and enrollment, it really should go on the same line. Folks like to put it on different lines, but from student inner join enrollment, that tells you that you're joining those two tables, and then the on clause has the actual key fields that you're joining on. So there we go. So there's your inner join statement. Now I can get rid of my comment. So I hope that you guys, I mean, were encouraged by figuring that out. Oop, got a semicolon up here I don't need anymore. One little character, goof up the whole thing. Bam. There we go. So there's our query. That's including herself. Only Ruben Sanchez is a sophomore that's enrolled in the same course sections as Amanda Mobley. But sometimes you just gotta just type and if you get it wrong or it won't work, email me. Bang your head against the wall 3 times, and on the 4th time, email me what you're having trouble with. I am begging you. Instead of just not turning anything in, I just please give me some feedback that I'm not all alone out here in the universe talking to myself. I certainly appreciate it. Okay, so where were we? What slide are we on? I think that was the whole thing. Yes, and then I had to go on a tangent about the inner join. But I learned through, I banged my head against the wall twice. And luckily on the 3rd time, execute. It worked okay. All right. One last query. So we're doing first, last name, grade, advisor, and last name for the same advisor as Daniel Black. So we're going to have the same FID as Daniel Black in the student table, or they have made the same grades as Daniel Black. Yeah, by the way, we could query this up, but the Blanchard is his advisor and he's only made C's. So here we go. We got our grade query. That's the sub query. So we will select all of that and test it and run it. Test it. Always test your code. Yep. One value. He's only gotten C's. Only enrolled in one class. So, or only received one grade. Two null values means he's enrolled in something, but no grade has been assigned. Okay. It could be a multiple value, so put it last. Okay. Create a query that tells who the advisor is for Daniel Black. Yeah, FID, because that determines who the advisor is. Okay. Now this one, let me comment out this one subquery because we'll build this from scratch. This commenting out, writing code and commenting out is really handy for keeping it on the screen. You can do the same thing in Python. Comment out stuff that you don't need. So now we need the FID, but we need, there's an FID, F_ID in both of these tables. So we have to tell SQL which table we're talking about. So we're going to pull the faculty FID, and then we're going to join the student and faculty table, and only pull from the student table where we have Daniel Black. So we'll execute that, and we will see Blanchard, right? Is what we, yep, Blanchard is FID number 1. Okay, so that got a single FID. So that can go in a subquery where we will say equals. And this one has more than one result. So we got to have an N to compare against that subquery. So let's go out and get the main juice that we were talking about, the main query. Got a little more rules, some caveats. So now that we have the two subqueries, put them together and add the main query. So the main query, remember we were looking for first and last name, grade, and advisor. So we will grab all of that. And we have this subquery. So I'm going to grab everything up to the subqueries. Stick that in here. Give me some room. So those are my two subqueries. So of course I'm going to have to put them in the right syntax. But here's our main query, and our main query ends with the beginning of our subquery. So we will back that up a little bit, tab it in, and add our open paren. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this extra semicolon because we only have one in the entire statement, but we do need a close paren under that subquery. And then just to tidy things up, I'm going to tab in this stuff so that it lines up nice and readable. Okay, and then we have to have another and grade in, because remember we were getting more than one grade, and the search field has to match. The subquery field has to match what you're searching against. So grade in, select grade. Remember, that's how that goes. So we will get rid of these comments. Tab that in, and we need an open paren, and then get rid of the comment character down here, and we need a close paren for that subquery. And everything looks like it's lining up. So we're selecting distinct student name and grade and faculty advisor's last name. Joining student to enrollment, and student to faculty. So we've got our tables joined, tables lined up, and our search criteria for faculty ID is a subquery pulling out Daniel's faculty member. And he will only have one, so it's an equal sign. And pulling out a list of grades from the enrollment table, the student and enrollment table. Actually, it's a list of grades from the enrollment table, but we're linking them together. We're joining them on student ID, where it's also Daniel Black. So this looks good to me, and Workbench isn't saying we got a syntactical error, so I'm going to hit return. And there we go. Daniel Black and Brian Umato are both being advised by Blanchard and have gotten a C, the same grade. And remember, and Daniel Black has only gotten C's. So what if we change this a little bit? Go off script here a little bit. What's her name? Amanda Mobley. C. Pick on her again. And Mobley. See what we get here. Nobody. I got it backwards. I got Amanda where I want Mobley and Mobley where I want Amanda. Don't you wish computers would just do what the heck you meant? I mean, it knew that Amanda's last name is Mobley, not her first name. But it lets me type it in anyway. Doesn't stop me. One of these days, we're going to have a HAL 9000. It will say, Don, don't you mean? Still nothing. Arg. Curious. So to troubleshoot that, to figure out why this works for what's his name, but not Amanda, I'm gonna get me a fresh tab, and I'm gonna clean up this subquery, and I'm gonna find out she hasn't got any grades. Duh, there you go. She has no grades assigned. Well, now I gotta know. I wanted to see everything in enrollment. Where all these grades are. Isn't that a ENROLMENT? Oh, from. What is her student ID? Amanda Mobley is number 4. So looking in the enrollment table. Ha! She's enrolled, but has no grades. There you go. Mystery solved. I know. Weren't you guys just really worried about that? That Scooby-Doo mystery?
I was petrified.
Wasn't that spellbinding? But that's what it takes, guys. You go look at the data, you iteratively kind of figure it out, sort it out. I don't know. That's how I solve problems. Just kind of decompose the stuff. Work from the lowest inside level and then start wrapping it with the fanciness until it breaks, and then you kind of get an idea of what happened. Okay, back to our presentation. So there you go. So that is the idea of subqueries. A subquery returns a value or values that you can then use as search criteria. Nothing more complicated than that. Nothing more complicated. The complication comes in writing the query, but conceptually, that's all a subquery is a list, a unique value or a list of values that you can then use as criteria in a where clause. Okay. Any questions on those before I move on? I got another show I want to go through. Really big show. Okay. Speaking of shows, I dropped another $10 on another streaming service last night. Had to go with Paramount Plus because all the Survivor series are not on Amazon, and we watched them all. So I had to drop $10. But actually, you subscribe to Paramount Plus through Amazon as an Amazon channel, and it bills your Amazon account, so you don't have a separate Paramount bill, which is kind of cool. So I fell for it. I thought for sure we were headed for, like Lord of the Rings, one ring to rule them all. I thought we were headed for one streaming service that you pay one bill and you watch whatever the heck you want, but it seems like it's just fragmenting. It's just really frustrating. As a viewer, I watch a little bit of TV. I watch a couple hours of TV every night. For sure. Okay, so the next thing I uploaded to the classroom. Please confirm someone. I uploaded number 6, calculations and functions, to the Canvas classroom. First person to tell me it's in there gets extra credit.
What was the name again? I just got it up.
Yep, I see it. Calculations. Yep, I got it. It's in there.
Number 6, MySQL calculations and functions.
Yep,
okay.
It's in there.
Yeah. So this presentation is a lot less complex, and I think you'll start to see that there's nothing new under the sun. These tools all do the same stuff. You just got to figure out how it works. So let me pull up calculations and functions. I went through this morning. I think I got everything error proofed. Okay, so we have not been really doing much as far as operating on the data, but remember from Excel, we're constantly pulling out 2 or 3 characters out of the middle of a string, or we're comparing dates, or we're typing in a like the quadratic equation or something like that, where we're dividing and multiplying and whatnot, and sticking values in there. Same exact stuff goes on with SQL, and we'll cover that. And then there's the last half or third of this presentation shows you how SQL does kind of the equivalent of a pivot table. We'll check all that out. 10 more minutes, no problem. Okay. So of course we can do math. For a given row, you can multiply their pay by their number of hours they worked this week, divided by minus the income tax, and any sort of math you want to do in a select statement, and it'll do it on each row, for that column on each row. like, yeah, we insert the instructions for arithmetic in the select clause, like this kind of stuff. There is a max enrollment column in the course section table. We are going to select it and we're going to alias it as max. So let me grab all this and then we're going to do some math and alias that as by half. Get this going in Workbench. Okay, so remember you can provide a meaningful alias for a column by just putting it in quotes. Put a space and then the alias goes in quotes. So when we execute this, we get maximum enrollment for a course section divided by 2, cut in half, just as an example. But if you like here, let me get rid of these aliases, these aliases. And if I get rid of them and hit enter, it's the same result, but your column headers are garbage. If you were going to now, export this as a CSV file, which you can do by just clicking right on that little export button, you would have a mathematical expression in the column header, just kind of goose things up. So that's what these aliases are good for, to make it something like and that sort of thing. And you don't need to alias every column if it's already meaningful. So we've got, in my select statement, I've aliased this arithmetic expression. And you'll notice the arithmetic expression outputs like a column, even though it's a derived column. It's a derived value, but it derives it for every row. Okay. Just like you'd think. To me, this, yeah, that's what you'd think you'd be getting in a select statement. So if it's not going down with you guys intuitively like this, slow me down. We'll do some more examples. Okay, so that's a typical teeny tiny, and now we can write a query that displays the course name. And in a university setting, they are really, really, really worried about credit hour production. They want, that's how you charge tuition. That's how you make money. That's how you keep the college open, is by having folks enrolled in credit hours. So they call that credit hour production. And this is sort of a reflection of credit hour capacity. So we're selecting the course name, the maximum number of students that could be enrolled in it, times the number of credit hours, which is either usually 3 or 4. There are some changes to that, but most college classes are 3 or 4 hours. And we have this max enroll times credits is our math. And that is the total credits that we could enroll people in for that course name. And then of course we're joining the 2 tables. So we'll put that in there. Okay, and that would be really ugly if we didn't alias it. In fact, I'm gonna delete that real quick. See what we get. Yeah, max enroll star credits is a horrible column name. So we'll change that back. Same results, just an alias. but there are different sections of intro to info systems. So that's why you're getting um, these different lines, different total credits. I think we'll wind up grouping them together here in a minute. And so we can, yeah, 105, 105 in C++. So that's just, yeah, max enrollment. So that's one column multiplied by another column, and then being aliased as something else. A derived column. And that could be as many columns, whatever you need in the equation. It could be, 10, 12, whatever, different columns in that arithmetic expression, but that arithmetic expression will be output as a column in the query. Okay. Okay. Yes, some flavors of SQL will let you say like a end date minus start date for like to calculate the duration of something. It literally lets you minus. I think Excel lets you do that with the right data type. But in MySQL, we use a function. So we're going to use this function called dateDiff, and we're going to pass it sysdate, which is a kind of a system variable. I think Excel has like now or today, where if you plug that in, it's a keyword and it just populates with the current date. So we're going to look at the dateDiff function. It will tell you the number of days between two dates. So we have sysdate and the student's date of birth. So we'll select all of that. Calculations and functions. Let's see. I think I got these all working. It will error the function name sysdate. You don't pass any parameters. It's a function, so you still need an open and closed paren. You need the like null parameters, and make sure when you're calling a function that there's no space between the function name and the first open parenthesis, or it errors. It like this. If I put a space in between dateDiff and the open paren, it doesn't realize like I'm not getting a red X or any craziness from Workbench, but it's assuming that dateDiff is a column now, not a function. When it looks at it and figures things out, it's thinking dateDiff is a column in the student table right now, even though it's a reserved word. Now, make a liar out of me. I had all kinds of trouble with that earlier. Doggone it, I prepared that whole speech. Doesn't seem to be erroring here, but it was erroring for me. Every time I put a blank in the sysdate does not exist. Maybe that's what it was. So, and that's where I fixed it. Get rid of that space. And it makes more sense. But I could have swore that if the same thing with the dateDiff, but it doesn't seem to be minding that now. Huh. Well, all right. And of course, this is ugly, right? So we can say, give it a column alias. And now we know that's their age in days. Okay. just one second. We're doing the date. I'm going to say divided by 365. Get rid of the. So if we do all of that stuff divided by 365, and they were born in what, 1985, they're now 36 years old or so. We should return like a floating point, 36.42 years old. There you go. So you can do, you can do however, whatever math you need to do in a select statement using those columns and functions and other, whatever solves the problem. How am I doing? Questions on that? Pretty straightforward. Okay. Okay. All right. So, yeah, there's single row and multiple row functions, group functions. So we'll talk about the difference between those. Okay, single row functions are things like that. That date diff where it works. It works across the row, and you'll get a result for like a tabular result. But it works. A single row function works on that row. But there's a way to work on an entire column. So we'll get there here just a sec. Single row function examples. Yeah, like there's a MySQL has a day name function that will return the day of the week based on a date field. And if you're ever wondering how MySQL does something, just Google it. Google how to calculate a day of the week from a date MySQL, and the internet will answer, and you'll find the day name function. All right, so that's the day of the week that they're all born on. So these are again single row because they operate. The function operates for each row. How do you spell backwards? So there's a string function in SQL, just like there is in Python and Excel, that will reverse the letters of a string. So this takes every occurrence of f_last and reverses it. Blanchard is Draknalb. There we go. And you can nest just like any other programming language. Like you can think there's an upper function, and you can that really should go on the next line. You can upcase or force uppercase of a string. So that is the reverse gets resolved. So it turns around backwards, and then it passes that result of that to the next outer function, which is upper. And there's also, I believe, we'll try it, a lower function that lower cases everything. So you can nest functions just like you can in any other programming language. Okay, now, so that's a single row function, and that will create a calculated column based on other columns, but it'll do it for each row. A group function looks at a column and calculates for that entire column. We'll see here. For example, we might wish to display the total number of students who register for a particular course. And there are particular keywords that allow you to do that. But remember, so group functions return a single result, and single row functions return multiple results. So that may sound counterintuitive, but once you start working with them, you'll see what we're talking about. A group function groups a bunch of rows and does something on that group. So we can group the data, but we can also filter and sort and whatnot and all that. Well, no, you wouldn't sort because you're only getting one result. So group functions are things like the average, which is actually the arithmetic mean of a column. So just like it's in Excel, it was the average function. You can tell Excel equals average of, and then select a column of data, and it will give you the arithmetic mean of that data in Excel. Same exact things going on with SQL. Yeah, I could have swore I was having trouble with this space here, but anyway, good, not having trouble. So we're selecting the average capacity from location. I don't want to get ahead of myself, so I'll keep going. And then there's another, just like in a pivot table, where the heart of the pivot table, the value field setting, you can do either the count of something or the sum of something, and it will it'll act appropriately. There is a count function in SQL, and it operates slightly differently depending on what you send as a parameter. Man, I'm going past break time here. Let's get up, stretch, come back at 11:30, and we'll do some more of these group functions. Break, come back at 11:30. Okay, so the count function brings back an integer that reflects the number of rows that meet a certain criteria. It's very handy. So select count of star from enrollment, for example. Uh-oh, what have I done? Select count star from enrollment. We'll pull every or a count of all the rows in a table. That's a real easy way. If you just want to know how many rows are in a table, you select count of star. That's star meaning, remember, just like select star, it means every column. So we're basically counting every row, but it's different. So there's 20 rows in our enrollment table. And if we can prove that to ourselves, select star from enrollment, and bam, there are your 20 rows. Okay. 20 rows returned, it says down here in the bottom. Okay, so that lines up. But if you use a particular column name, it suppresses the nulls. Let me get that. If you select count a grade, it will it will not count the ones where a grade has not been assigned. Because that's how we know. So there's 12 12 student enrollments where a grade has been assigned out of the 20. So there you go. So curious here if I'm getting ahead of myself, I think. Count of star minus count of grade. I think, I don't know that I have a slide on this. You can compare group functions because they both return a single value. I think I may regret this. I'm off script. Hold on to your hats. I'm off script. There you go. So you could select that, and since that is one big arithmetic expression, count star minus count grade, you can alias that as ungraded classes. So we have 8 ungraded classes. So that's a good example of a group function combined with an arithmetic expression that makes a really ugly column header, but you can always give it an alias to pretty it up. All right. I think I'm getting ahead of myself here, but this is important to remember. You use it a lot when you're dorking with data. I know I remember I did. Count a star returns just all the rows in the table. Count of a field name gives all the non-null values in that field. So valuable tools. Let me see what we got here. Yeah. Count of star gives all of the classes that Ruben is enrolled in. Count of grade, nothing changed except grade and star, shows how many he's gotten a grade assigned in. So we'll plug that in. And then if we change it to grade, so he's enrolled in 5 courses, but he's only gotten 3 grades. So he's got 2 ungraded classes. So there you go. Proof they operate differently. Okay, so that's the count group function. Very, very helpful. Other ones, just like you would think, we'll blast through these pretty quick. Just like descriptive statistics coming out of Excel, min, max. I'm curious if there's a mode. We'll try that. Max enrollment. That's the single highest value. There may be more. There may be more than 140 in the max enrollment column, but that is the highest value. Doesn't mean that it's a unique value. And then we can select the min of the max. The min max enrollment. Guess I could have just typed in min. That's all that changed. Good grief, how lazy is that? So it's 30, from 30 to 140. And then there's a sum. So if you want to, how count gives you a number that is the number of occurrences. Sum actually adds up the values in that column. So if we look at the sum of capacity from location, we are going to get like the total number of chairs in the whole college, which may or may not be useful for something. Sum of capacity from location. 433 folks in seats at any one given time. And remember, these are all group functions, so they do what they're doing on a column, but they return a single value. And you can mix and match them. Since they all return a single value, you can do math on them like I did with the grades. Okay, now let's do a query that gives group information concerning enrollment in course sections, including the sum, the average number that are enrolled, and the min and max enrollment in any given course section. And again, these are all group functions. So you can mix and match them on a table, but only where term equals summer 2007. Okay. So since these are all group functions, we can combine them. And summer 2007 happens to be term ID 6. We could go and find it. We could go do the join, but we'll just type it in verbatim here. And it's an integer value, so you don't need quotes on the 6. Okay, so these are the group functions of the same. It's all of the same column, but it's from the course section where term ID equals 6, which is fall 2007, summer 2007. So because these are all group functions, you can select them all on the same line. If you tried to select mix and match group functions with just normal columns, really goofs things up. I don't even know if it will let you. Let me see here. It looks like it'll let you, but I think it provides just really goofy results, or completely ignores you. It just just grabs something out of the database. It doesn't. You can't rely on what comes out of max enroll. It could be any one of the values out of the database. It doesn't have to necessarily be 50. I think I have a slide on that concept. So just be aware that if you're using those group functions, they all return one value so that you can count on them returning one value each, and don't mix and match group functions and like a normal column or a single row function. Okay, if we leave off summer 2007, yeah, that's just all that's doing is and I got rid of one of my fields here. So that's the you can use a where clause to limit the things that the group functions are operating on. It works on the entire column, but remember, a where clause limits what's in the column or the columns that are returned. Okay, now any questions on those, how they work? I mean, I'll give you some hands-on to dork with, which typing it in and looking at the results and playing with it like I do, to me, that's really the only real way to learn. No questions? Okay. This next short section here is how you pivot the data. You know how you'll have all this repeating data, but if you want to consolidate each, all the values for a given, you'll see. So if we run this, the sum of capacity from location, we're going to get the capacities totaled up, every value that's in the capacity field added together and spit out. No where clause, no limits. So there's our 433 maximum students in seats based on our classroom capacity. So what we might want to see is the sum of the capacities, but broken down by different types of things, broken down either maybe by building or by the type of classroom, those sorts of things. And we can do that in SQL with another clause, another one of those 30 keywords that we talked about at the beginning of the SQL, which is group by. So we're going to add grouping. So we want to see all the capacities summed up for each individual building. So a building code is, the building name. So it requires us to select the building code because we're going to be grouping by building code. And you couldn't group them if you don't display the building code, because you'll see what the result of this query looks like. It'll make sense to you. Just like this would go in the row of a pivot table. So all the capacities for the different classrooms in the bus would probably be College of Business is 170. In CR, it's 260. Now, if we don't do a group by, and we just look at the capacities, going off script a little bit here. Give me just a minute. Building code and capacity. We're going to get repeat, because there's this capacity is a classroom in the CR building that has a capacity of 150, but we're not displaying the classroom. But we are grouping 150 and 40 is 190, and then 35 twice is 70, 190 plus 70, 260. So let's go back here, and so we're just verifying. $260 in CR. So there you go. Now, if you 45. Yeah, I'm going to take 3 minutes to do this. I just want to show you. I want to show you. From location, and we're not going to group. Okay. So back to the old school. We don't know how to do a pivot table. We don't know how to group data in SQL. So we're going to do that, and it repeats, right? So I'm going to export that, click on that, save it as a, I thought I could do Excel, but I can't. Save it as a CSV to my desktop real quick here, and I'm going to call it capacities. Okay, save. Now I'm going to go out to my desktop real quick, and I'm going to bring up capacities. This is what I just exported. This is that data without the group by. It has repeating data, right? So let me real quick file, save as. I want to save this as a workbook. Excel workbook, save. Okay, so we are now operating in Excel on that data that we just queried out. If I look at this now, I've got the headers are exactly what they were in SQL. So this is handy, right? I mean, this is how you generate. You can use SQL to answer specific questions, but you can use it to generate a data file as well. Well, this is perfect pivotable data. This is what pivotable, the kind of thing that you would want to use a pivot table for. So I'm going to insert a pivot table in the existing worksheet right there. And I'm going to say, okay. Okay, so in the pivot table fields now, I want a row for each building code. And I want a sum of the capacity. So let's see if it automatically does that. Yes, it automatically went to it. So my pivot table here looks, my pivot table looks exactly like my query results of my my group by. Do I still have that in my? Yes. So let me shrink that up, get that over there, shrink this down and get that over there. So my pivot table is exactly the same results as my my query with a group by. See how that works? Anybody want to tell me? Thank you, Don. The light just went on. That's super great.
Thank you, Don. The light went on. That was super great.
I don't know how sincere you're being, Paul. It sounds like you're being fed your lines. Anyway, yeah, so this is kind of a point I wanted to get to with the group by clause. That's what it's doing is compressing, pivoting data and giving you the summary for each of the CR buildings, the bus buildings, and the library, which is only 3. Yep, there you go. So that's what the group by thing does. Is it pivots the data. Had to show that to you. Couldn't let it go. There you go. I don't care to say that. But honestly, Paul, was that absolutely something you already knew?
Yeah, I use SQL quite a bit.
Yeah, you would. Okay. How about you, Dave? Was that new information?
Well, I will say that it is new, but I kind of assumed that's where we were going.
Ah, there you go.
So, I mean, it's good to see it in a practical application, I guess,
That's it can be done, and we'll see in Python when we're working with these data frames using the pandas library. You do the exact same thing. There's a different syntax for doing it. So once you get used to seeing these things that you wish you could do, it's just a matter of figuring out the syntax. And after the new year, we'll do them in Power BI. All right. So that is the group by function, but we're not done just yet. If you include a field in the select clause that is not a group function, and remember the group functions are things like, the sum, the count, the min, the max, if you just put just a normal column, you have to group by that column so it knows how to handle that column. It knows how to handle it, that it's going to do something for each unique instance of that, in this case, building code. And that can cause some confusion. Okay. So that's the rule for that. Okay. Note what happens if we do not have, just kind of randomly draw something out of the database. It doesn't error. It'll let you, but it doesn't know. It's almost like a table join without the linking the key fields. So if we select building code and sum of capacity from location, but we don't group by building code, it will give you the sum of capacity, and it just gives you a random building code. It just picked CR. Remember, there's three. There's CR, LIB, and BUS. So it's telling you basically that the sum of the capacity of the CR building is 433, and that is erroneous. So you've got to make sure that you put it in the group by. I would think it would make you. I don't know when you would ever want SQL to let you execute that, but there you go. You cannot combine a group function and a field in the select clause unless you put that field in the group by. All right. So there you go. Multiple single row along with a group function here. So you've got to group by everything in the select statement that's not a group a group function. So that's why you got to have course ID and CSEC day down here in the group by, because they're up here in your select statement. So this will grab the course ID and the days of the week that that course is offered, and all the max enrollments for that course ID on that day, on that set of days. We'll see that. Yeah, you see the course ID 1 is taught on Monday, Tuesday, every day of the week, and it's also taught on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it's also taught on Tuesday, Thursday. So that's why there are 3 occurrences of that course ID, because it's unique. It's grouped by the days of the week that it's taught, and then over here we have our sum of our maximum enrollment for that combination. For course ID 1 that's taught every day of the week, there's a maximum of 50 students. So there you go. We got one group function, and every other column is repeated in the select and the group by. But don't answer yet. There's also a way to limit that. Having is kind of like a where clause for a group by clause. The having clause places search conditions on the results of queries that display group functions. So it's kind of like a where clause, it's a filter. And it comes after the group by clause. So yeah, the order of these clauses, we're starting to get, select, join, from, where, having, group by, order by. There you go. We probably need a cheat sheet for which one goes in which order, don't we? Because it will goof up. So the generic template syntax for a having clause, which will limit what gets counted or summed or averaged, is the group function and then the comparison operator and the value. So you need an example, like having max equals what? For example, if we're grouping by max enrollment, if we add having sum of max enrollment is greater than 35. So that's a single value that we can append, which we'll do in the next slide, to our group by clause that that limits the stuff that's being aggregated in our group by clause. Okay, so let's have an example, Don. So we're going to select, just like we did before, our building capacities. And I want to first show it without the having clause. So if we select the building code and the sum of capacity from location group by building code, we're going to get the BUS, the CR, and the LIB. Remember, with the 260 and 3 and whatever the heck it was, and 170. There you go. So that we've done that query before. So now that could be 1,000 returns. You know what I mean? Just this is a very simple little database. But if you wanted to limit the sums of capacity to greater than something or less than something, that's when you would throw this having clause in there. It's kind of like a where clause for the group by. What did I do wrong here? Oh, got an extra semicolon. Okay. So here's the exact same thing, group by building code, but it's grouping by building code that have the sum of all the capacities are greater than 100. So this will get rid of the library. Just like a where clause, only it's in when you're doing these aggregations, these groupings. Group by and having. Okay. Questions? Need a few challenges? Hands-on always kind of does it for me. Okay. Well, they're not loaded up there, but I will here very shortly get an assignment loaded. I think we'll maybe go through it together on Thursday morning and do some of these hands-on. I'll ask you to share your screen and get going with them. So I'll email everyone when I get that posted so you can take a look at them, and then we'll work them on Thursday. And I've got, I think, one more Gee Whiz presentation, but that's a pretty good overview of SQL queries, from super simple to pretty complex. There's other ways to go about it. There's other techniques that are slightly more advanced. There's ways to store a subquery as what's called a common table expression. There's just other ways to do things, but this is a pretty good overview of SQL query techniques. Okay, I need to confirm with you guys your workplace mentor, and I need to set up a 30-minute with you and your mentor, hopefully before Christmas, this week or next, to talk about your final project and everything, how things are going in the course and whatnot. Colton, can you confirm for me who your workplace mentor is that'll be helping you with your final project? Colton?
Sorry, what was that?
There you go. Who's your workplace mentor?
Gabriel Hudson.
Gabe Hudson. So yeah, everybody be looking for an email in the next day or two to set up an appointment to talk about the course final project, which you'll be doing in February. Hunter? Hunter? Nothing in the chat. Hunter. All right. Paul,
Yeah.
who's going to be guiding your final project?
That's not something I've had a chance, I guess, to discuss with anybody at work. I would assume it would probably be my manager, Laura Poe,
Does she?
or my CTO, Kent Watson.
Yeah, I want to say it's going to be Kent. If he wants to outsource it, he can. But I've got his email. I don't know that I've met Laura. Hampton.
Sorry, I was trying to come off mute. Mine will be Caroline Cooner.
I'm sorry, Caroline.
Caroline Cooner.
How you spell that last name?
Cooner.
Okay. I don't know that I have that
You might
email.
have Melanie Clayton because she's our HR, but I don't think that she would really.
Right.
Yeah, I think Caroline might be maybe more hands-on with the project.
Okay. Can you shoot me an email with her email? I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure
absolutely.
I don't think we have that on file.
Yeah, I'll do
All
it now.
right. How about you, Jim?
Chastity Scarborough.
Chaz.
Yeah,
All
Chaz.
right. All right. She knows exactly what I'm going to be covering, so that won't take long. Dave,
Yay.
it won't take long. Yay. How about you, Dave?
Most likely it would be Jeremy. However, it could possibly be Andra.
Okay.
And
Andra was
it'll
sharp
be
too.
one of those. I'm sorry.
I said Andra was sharp too. So either one. I'll shoot an email. And if it needs to be somebody else, I just want to go over the expectations for the final project, the support you will need, and make sure they understand what what's coming up and the time frame and the graduation day and all that stuff, just so that your folks are well aware of what's going on.
Right. I'll firm that up for you to make sure, but it's going to be one of those two.
Okay. And Jasmine? I can see you coming off mute, Jasmine, but I can't hear anything. So maybe throw it in the chat window.
Can you hear me now?
There we are.
Oh, sorry, it was not fully plugged in. Whoops.
Oop.
I'm not sure who that is. I wasn't aware that we were supposed to check on that. Sorry, I must have missed it. But I can look into that and find out.
Well, when you got into the apprenticeship before this course, back when you were doing the Ed2Go stuff, they should have asked you who your mentor was. Who is your workplace data person?
I have not been assigned a mentor either.
I was not asked that.
Yeah.
Huh. All right. Well, guess we missed that. Okay. Do you? So you probably don't know about Leela either then.
No, I do not know.
So we will find out. I'll. Do you guys? Who's your supervisor? Your direct supervisor.
Justin Castleman.
Both of you.
Yes.
For me, it's Laura Poe.
Paul.
Yeah. But I'm in the same boat. Like, I wasn't asked who a mentor was or assigned one. I've just been doing random things at work.
Sure. No. Yeah. And this is just an ACDS thing.
Right. But I haven't been doing anything ACDS related at work. Just like random IT things for Be Unlimited.
Yeah.
I haven't been doing anything related to ACDS besides these Tuesday, Thursday classes.
Okay. Well, there you go. And we'll Justin Castleman. We'll get it figured out. Regina's gone again. She's on her own. She's a CEO of a nonprofit. I'll have to help her out. Hunter, are you back? I don't see you going off mute.
He's probably in the same boat as Leela and myself.
Where's he at?
I don't know where he is. I'm just saying he might not know because that wasn't
Ah.
something that was discussed with us. And I think we all started around the same time. His
Okay.
supervisor is also Justin Castleman.
All right. Well, I'll start with Justin, and he can turn me in the right direction. So that's 1, 2. Okay, that's everybody except.
My guess would be for the CAE folks, it's going to be either Jeremy, Andra, Chaz, somebody from the dog from that
Yeah.
analytics work group.
Yeah, and that's what they told me, is that they're putting people through the course. Like Jeremy, I don't know that I taught Jeremy anything. You know what I mean? He took the course more to be ready to mentor subsequent attendees than for his own needs. You know what I mean?
Right, and that's kind of how we had it designed as well. What we also did though as a group is we kind of, with Jeremy being the mentor for Andra and Chaz, and then as Chaz and Andra graduated this, you know, they would step up and mentor as well. So the CAE folks, it's more than likely going to be one of those individuals from the dog.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, I will email you when I have the next query problem exercise file up there. But don't sweat working on it. We're pretty much using up all your time today. But I'm going to re-beg, if you haven't turned in Python problems 2 and or query problems 1, turn in something, even if it's blank. Reply to the assignment, because I'm freaking out. Like I'm not doing my job. So if you would please get something turned in. Well, I'm giving you back 20 minutes plus the first hour of the day. Turn in something, please, to Python problems 2 and query problems 1, and I'll go through and come up with some more stuff to have fun with on Thursday.
Yeah, I just wanted to apologize for not turning it in on Friday. I turned it in this morning, but I've been in and out of the hospital, and it's also finals week for me at grad school.
Okay. So like I said, turning in something with, I think the first query problem was, select a couple of columns from a table, turn in something so that I know you're not just, staring at a blinking cursor wondering where to go. And if you are, turn in something and let me know so that we can, set up something outside of class. Okay, guys, I'll see everybody Thursday morning at 8:30.
Thank you.
Thank you.